الحرير والاستبرق فألبسنا، وليلة القدر وحج بيتك الحرام وقتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا، وصالح الدعاء والمسألة فاستجب لنا، وإذا جمعت الأولين والآخرين يوم القيامة فارحمنا، وبراءة من النار فاكتب لنا، وفي جهنم فلا تغلنا، وفي عذابك وحوانك فلا تبتلنا، ومن الزقوم والذريع فلا تدعمنا، ومع الشياطين فلا تجعلنا، وفي النار على وجوهنا فلا تكببنا، ومن ثياب النار وسرابيل القطران فلا تلبسنا، ومن كل سوء يا لا إله إلا أنت بحق لا إله إلا أنت فنجنا فنجنا فنجنا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل، أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم، المشكور سعيهم، المغفور ذنوبهم، المكفر عن سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية، وتوسع في رزقي، وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيري. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبية أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. صلوات الله. تحفة الصائمين page 142. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إلهي وقف السائلون ببابك ولاذ الفقراء بجنابك، ووقفت سفينة المساكين على ساحل بحر جودك وكرمك. يا إلهي إن كنت لا ترحم إلا المطيعين فمن للعاسين، وإن كنت لا تقبل إلا من العاملين فمن للمقصرين. إلهي ربح الصائمون وفاز القائمون ونجا المخلصون، ونحن عبيدك المذنبون، فارحمنا برحمتك واعتقنا من النار بعفوك يا كريم يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم ادخل على أهل القبور السرور، اللهم أغني كل فقير، اللهم اشبع كل جاع، اللهم اكس كل عريان، اللهم اقض دين كل مدين، اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب، اللهم رد كل غريب، اللهم فك كل أسير، اللهم اصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين، اللهم اشف كل مريض، اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك، اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك، اللهم اقض عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر، إنك على كل شيء قدير.
मोमिनीन आप लोगों से गुजारिश है कि तशरीफ़ रखें, थोड़ी देर में बस वर्कशॉप शुरू हो जाएगा। आज की वर्कशॉप जो है उसका मौजू है स्किल ऑफ पेरेंटिंग। तो आप लोगों से गुजारिश है, इससे बहुत कुछ आप सीख सकते हैं। और इस वर्कशॉप में जो स्पीच है वो है शेख जैद अल सलामी की, सलामी साहब। और ये माशाल्लाह से एक अपॉर्चुनिटी हम लोगों के लिए कि माशाल्लाह से शेख साहब हम लोग एक साथ मौजूद हैं और आज की इस वर्कशॉप को हैंडल करेंगे। बराए खुशनूद इमाम ज़माना बुलंद तरीन सलावात अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद वअज्जिल फरजहुम। ख़वातीन से गुजारिश है इस तरफ आ जाए। बराए खुशनूद मौला मुश्किल कुशा बुलंद तरीन सलावात। बराए खुशनूद मौला मुश्किल कुशा बुलंद तरीन सलावात।
الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلوات وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. تقبل الله أعمالنا وأعمالكم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your fasting. If we could ask security to come and control the little kids, that would be good. Tonight's workshop will be a little bit longer than our regular of you teenagers, young adults. I would say this is applicable to everyone, even if you don't have a child, even if you are too young. Everything I would say that I will be sharing with my brothers and sisters tonight are going to be applicable because we are all somehow involved with family members. We're all somehow interacting with people around us. We have siblings, we have relatives, we have neighbors, and therefore it really is important to pick up on this skill. And I stress on the word skill because unfortunately the biggest problem that we can see in our society is the assumption that raising of children and dealing with people around us is something inherent within ourselves, and it's not something that you necessarily need to learn. No, it definitely is a skill that we need to put effort in, that we need to invest in, that we need to try to make sure that we learn as much as we can, either through reading and studying and researching, or through participating in programs, courses, workshops, or at least putting some kind of investment into this area. I was reading a book from one of our esteemed ulama, and a question was directed at him where someone had asked him, when do you think we should start focusing on the tarbiyah, on the raising of our children? And the answer that he got was 20 years before they are born. 20 years before they are born. The major problem that many families, many parents are guilty of is they come to realize the importance of learning the skill of raising themselves and raising their children at an age where the damage has already been done. At a time where not much can be salvaged from how this son, how this daughter has evolved into. And that's why the approach that we need to take is we need to be focusing on raising our children even way before they are born. And if we were to do this, we would be more selective with our spouse. We would be more careful with who it is that we marry. We would be careful in what location we live in. We would be more careful in the tone of voice that we use, in the way that we conduct ourselves in the presence of others, even before we've thought about having children. The first and foremost issue that we know when it does come to, are they loud or is it just me? Am I too sensitive? Okay. I think we need security for the adults as well, not just for the kids. Something that is obviously very, very important is when it does come to raising of children, when they're at a young age, it's difficult, but it's easy to manage. The critical age is the adolescent age, the tween age, and the teen age. From just before hitting 13, that's the teen age, is from 13 to 19, right? And just before that, the tween age, the age of 10, 11, and 12, until becoming a young adult. Now, this age is critical because there are so many things that are happening to this young boy, this young girl, that are natural to them in their physical development, but also things happening to them on a mental, on an emotional level. And that's where it becomes very difficult to read a teenager. You as an adult tend to forget that you went past through this same phase in your life. But when you are dealing with a teenager boy, dealing with a teenager girl, you tend to forget that there were so many things happening, rushing through your mind, so overwhelming as far as your emotions and your feelings. It was very difficult for you to even be able to express yourself. Sometimes the way that you express yourself is also not commonly acceptable by you yourself, should you rewind the tape and see how it is that you reacted in that particular situation. That's mainly because of these mood changes, or mainly because of all of these things that are happening to you as a teenager simultaneously, all at once. And this is why even when it comes to Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and the narrations mentioned by Ahlul Bayt, they talk about this age of fityah, this age of chivalry, this age of the shabab. Always you come across narrations from Ahlul Bayt where they say, Ya ma'shar al-shabab, O clan of youth, O young people. Of course, in the Holy Quran, there's also reference to that in regards to the people of Ashabul Kahf, the people of the cave. But the riwayat from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that speak about how to direct oneself in managing the affairs of young youth, it is mainly centralized around the ideological structure of the youth, right? Of the young teenager boy and girl, the ideology, so that they do not deviate away from the aqidah and the ideology of Ahlul Bayt. And number two, the moral conduct of a young teenager boy and a girl. Because when a young boy, a young girl are not alert, aware enough in how it is they need to be conducting themselves, and they innocently engage in some kind of sin, that black dot, if not rectified or fixed, if not removed through spiritual reawakening, that black dot will expand and expand and grow, overwhelming, absorbing this person, such that they will become so habituated to sin. For them, it has become an area they are so desensitized to. And this is why these two elements, these two factors are very, very important, especially when we look at what it is that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam are saying. I'm not going to be reading word by word what's on the screen. So brothers and sisters, make sure you do the reading. Of course, I put a lot of effort in this. So there are things that I'm definitely sure you will benefit from. When we do want to make that influence in the young boy, the young girl, when we want to, as a young boy, as a young girl, I want to make a change in how I am, I first need to understand who I am. You know, the narrations that speak about knowing yourself, self-knowledge, self-awareness, self-understanding, ma'rifatun nafs is very, very important. Once you are able to understand who you are, you'll be able to manage yourself in a better way. Why is it that all of us at a certain age continued to think, right, no one understands us? Why is it that when we were at a certain age, we always thought, no one understands us, everyone is against us. No one understands us, everyone is against us. Why? Because we somehow think that we are making mistake after mistake after mistake. But reality is, because all these things are happening you all at once, you do think, because of how overwhelming everything is, you think you are burdening yourself, overburdening yourself with all these things rushing into you. But the reality is, no. It's just a matter of you having to learn to be more accountable and responsible for your actions. And this is why in teenage behavior, as you can see, these things are very, very common, right? Especially when it comes to that withdrawal from the family, you know, that you want to be more secluded. And I would say, to a certain extent, at times that's a good thing, because every person needs some time for themselves, right? Especially when you're going through these hormonal changes and you having to deal with these mood swings and everything else. you do need some time for yourself. You do need some time for reflection, right? But if it's not managed, if you don't take care of how you need to be dealing with these things, if you don't manage it in the right way, it turns into something negative and bad. Which is why here I write that one of the issues is that young teenagers start to develop sibling rivalry, which isn't good, because somehow you are comparing yourself with your fellow sibling. Somehow you are more pressured by your parents than your sibling, maybe because you are older, maybe because you are less responsible, maybe because you really need to have more guidance than your fellow sibling. And it's not a matter of, you being targeted by your parents. But the worst thing that can happen, and that's something that I'm going to be speaking about in detail, is developing low self-esteem. If the family structure works in such a way where a person's emotions are not catered for, not in the spoiling sense, of course, but a person's emotions are not catered for, right? Then that will develop into a lot of mental health issues, low self-value, low self-esteem, and that is probably the worst crisis that we have in today's society. And of course, one way of how this happens is when reprimanding and criticizing becomes so common, that every single thing this son, this daughter does, you're criticizing. Every single thing that happens, there's something that you have to say. Whether it be the way they pour the tea, whether it be the way they tie their shoelaces, you as a parent, you have something bad, negative to say about everything your son and your daughter does. And that's very, very bad. In cases, we as parents really need to step back for our children to learn mistakes by themselves, from themselves. Sometimes you know that there is a pit right there in front of you that your son, your daughter will trip and fall down. Sometimes it's good for you to just step back and let that happen to them. Why? Because they will get up and they will be stronger. Which is also why we need to, pick up on these certain skills. I do a lot of camping. So one of the things that, instructors usually teach is, for young children, try not to hold their hand too much. Try not to hold their hand too much, especially if it's in rugged surface, in areas where there are rocks, for example, and climbing and hiking and things like that. Why is that? Because they need to subconsciously depend on their own judgments in where it is that they step. They also need to start relying on their own way of how they need to balance themselves. And that's why there are people who get older and they're still very, very clumsy. And that's also because you don't really have that level of strong balance that is required and necessary. Of course, in the issue of teenage behavior and how we need to understand these kind of things, there's a problem of the increase in the usage of social media, wanting to hide things, wanting to not share particular information. All of these things are really, really common and normal, but you have to know how to deal with it. Why isn't my son talking as much as he used to? Why is my daughter lying? She used to never lie when she was a young child. It's a different phase now. It's a different phase. Have you not heard of the narrations from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam about the 3-7 phases, that the child for 7 years is a king, 7 years a slave, 7 years a minister, 7 years you leave them, 7 years you discipline them, and 7 years you befriend them. These things, again, are all handed down to us from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Can we ask the brothers to either join us, or is it rude if I say go outside? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Oh. Okay, let's ask ourselves these questions, right? And by the way, the worst parent is a parent who says, Alhamdulillah, I'm doing a good job. Sorry to say that. The worst parent is a parent who's overconfident. We all need to learn. Each and every one of us needs to pick up on things that we didn't know 3 days ago or 1 year ago. The best parent is a parent who keeps on trying as much as they can, not with guilt, not with shame, not with saying I'm a failure. That's also very bad. But for a person to say, oh yeah, I'm good, I've done this, I do that. I don't find anywhere wrong in what it is that I am doing to my child. That's a very wrong mindset, because in a lot of cases it probably means that you are in a level of denial. There's an Arabic saying where the saying is al-qird bi'ayni ummihi ghazal, which means a monkey in its mother's eye is a deer. Maybe you might have some similar example in Urdu, right? A monkey in its mother's eye is a deer, right? So at times we shouldn't have that approach. We always need to make sure that we look at things not with negative eyes, with critical eyes. How can parents balance their parenting authority when it comes to things like privacy? Every person is entitled to privacy. How do you do that? Do you allow your son to lock his bedroom door? Do you allow your daughter to have a password on her mobile phone? Do you give your son this? You yourself, do you allow this? And all these other things that, of course, are really, really important for us to evaluate and look into. Of course, one of the things that is really, really important is picking up on how we need to address these things. Next, can we have a... Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Muhammad. Anyway, can someone come and... It's not changing. The slide isn't changing, Hajj. Okay, good. So communication is really, really important. And of course, when it does come to communication, your tone of voice plays a very important role. Should you be soft? Should you be loud? Should you be over assertive? Should you be giving minute details in your instructions? Is micromanaging good? Is being a helicopter parent, if you've heard that expression, is that a good thing? Right? How do you deal with them? Do you deal with a young child just because the young child is a little bit smart or intelligent? Do you deal with them older than their age, or do you deal with them at their age? If it's an older teenager, do you speak to him or her the same way as you speak with a younger child? This is, of course, really important in how we need to approach these things. The beginning, I'm just throwing out to all of you many questions. So these are all questions for you during our session, inshallah, to think of, to contemplate of, and hopefully, inshallah, we will be able to address all of them. I mentioned how much do we need to be involved in our children, and how much privacy do we need to have. I am of the opinion that privacy needs to be there, obviously, for everyone, for women more than men, due to the fact that, for example, women have more private issues related to them that men are not, privy of. So everyone needs to have privacy, but as a child, are you entitled to a level of privacy that absolutely nobody needs or is entitled to know of? Definitely the answer here is going to be no. You are entitled to your privacy, and of course that's very, very important, and nobody has a right, even a parent, to violate that privacy. For example, you've got a diary and you like to write down your feelings in the diary. That shouldn't be read by anyone, even if you don't lock it up in a safe. But me as a parent, I might be seeing something that is concerning for me, and I come to you and I say to you, what's going on? Can you talk to me? Why don't you talk to me? If you don't want to talk to me, speak to Uncle Ali, talk to Auntie Fatima. But still, he's not opening up, she's not opening up. This is when you're going to have to bypass the privacy of the child and try to find out what is going on. Have they become madly in love with someone that they no longer think right? Are they experiencing bullying at school that, they're too scared of to speak to you or to the teacher about, and they're boxing their feelings? All of these things really, really need to be addressed in the right way. Even when it comes to having a mobile phone, I'm going to be speaking about that in detail, but I would say, and this is something that you as a parent can share with other parents, inshallah, in our interaction that we have, I would say the worst decision for a parent is to give a child a mobile phone under the age of 15 or 16. I don't believe a child is of that level of maturity for them to be able to have a mobile phone of any sorts. Mobile phones have made our lives easy, but they've also made our lives miserable. Is it not something that I'm sure many of you have experienced, that if you don't answer the phone in the second or third ring, right, the first thing that rushes to mum's mind or dad's mind is you've been run over by a car, you've been kidnapped and they're selling your kidney in the black markets, or something of really, really bad, negative kind of, just because you were probably in the bathroom or probably busy with work or school or something like that. So although we think that mobile phones have made our lives easy, mobile phones have definitely increased our level. Once upon a time, you just have to wait until your family member comes back home from school or work. But now it's always the worst of things that come to one's mind. And that's also not good. Why do you need to have a mobile phone? Oh, because I need to contact mum or dad if I need to get back home early, or if I have after school work, or if I got a detention, or if the train is late or the bus is late, or any of these things. How disastrous is it that in today's society, probably 80% of children, of students, are dropped off and picked up every day in their lives, right? There's no such thing as catching buses and trains, and a'udhu billah, for a young 13, 14, 10-year-old boy or girl to be walking, because that's going to be the last of life. And that's also something really, really important that we need to address. People of my age and older, do you ever remember being dropped off or picked up when it comes to going to school or coming back home? No, nothing happened to us. I was never kidnapped, but I became a stronger person. I became more independent. I became more confident. I knew how to deal with strangers. I knew how to cross the road by myself, right? We are instilling fear in our children. Another question, and I was talking about this with some of my brothers a few days ago. How many kids do you see in the streets, running around in the streets and playing on bikes and scooters and things like that these days? Very rarely. It's very rare. In our days, the streets were full of kids. And it's because of two things. Number one, screens. And number two, fear. Fear of parents. In a lot of these cases, the kids would love to go out and adventure and do a lot of things, but it's the parents that are creating this unrealistic fear in the minds of the children. And that's also something that is very, very counterproductive. Why do I say mobile phones should not be given to people under the age of 15? Because you still have 1,000,001 things to experience in that best age of your life, instead of being so paranoid with your mobile phone and obsessed with your mobile phone. One of the worst addictions that exists today after social media is mobile phone usage. It's a third hand that people have, and that's also very, very unhealthy. So when it does come to these kind of things, we, of course, have to manage all of these things all at once. You're not going to be given a chance, an opportunity. All of these things are going to be thrown at you all at once, whether it be your privacy, whether it be how you deal with your emotions and the issues that you have with your family members, learning about privacy boundaries and managing conflict, and also how to manage your feelings and your moods and your emotions. That is really, really important, because thrown at you all at once, simultaneously, all happening simultaneously, spontaneously. What are you doing with your family, with your community, with your school, with yourself? All of these things are happening to you all at once, and it's really, really important for you to address them. And parents need to also be extra alert. Parents always need to be one step ahead all the time. All the time. If there are things that you start to be worried or concerned about, you have to know, we have to know how to deal with them. We have to know how to deal with them. Some can be dealt with in a very diplomatic way. Some can be dealt with need to be dealt with in a swift, harsh way. Some of them need to be dealt with through external intervention and help. Because me as a parent, sometimes I need to ask someone else to come in and have a talk to my son, come in and have a talk to my daughter. Mainly due to the fact that a son, a daughter, has a level of respect to the parents that they don't want to open up about absolutely everything. So you as a parent always need to have an external parent system. What do they call it? A godfather, a godmother, someone who you can rely on, who can come in and step in. Do these things necessarily need to happen for you to need to take measures? No. Sometimes you have a feeling. If you have that feeling, act upon it. Because in most cases, parents and their instinctive feeling, in most cases, parents and their instinctive feeling turns out to be right. So everyone's read all these things, right? And these are things, of course, that could be of different levels, you know. Who broke the plates? That is a lie, right? But something of a worse lie is when, for example, the person does something illegal, does something haram, you know, and tries to cover up with it. So a lie is a lie. But how do you deal with a plate being broken and him saying it wasn't me that broke it? And how do you deal with him, for example, doing something that is illegal or haram and saying to you that no, I didn't? I'm of course definitely sure that you would all take this particular approach, that when it comes to reacting in a positive way, the reprimanding should be less. And when it comes to a negative way, then of course the reaction should be severe. What I mean by this is good should always be rewarded, bad should always be punished, right? He broke a plate. He told a lie. that needs to be punished. He broke a plate. He told the truth, that needs to be rewarded. Why is that not rewarded? Oh, good on you, you broke a plate. You know, Afarin, you broke a plate. No, you broke a plate. You know, you need to be careful. Don't do it again. It was a mistake, obviously. It wasn't intentional, but need to be more careful, right? That's it. Carrying on with your with the rest of your day. Because if he tells the truth and is punished, he tells a lie and is punished, that becomes very, very confusing, doesn't it? So he's going to say, whether I tell the truth or whether I tell a lie, I'm going to get punished. That's very, very confusing, isn't it? So this is, of course, based on the hadith from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that says, Al-najatu fi-sidq. Salvation always comes about through being truthful. So whenever you tell the truth, it will get you in the right direction. And we have to instill that in the minds of our selves and our children. What kind of parent are you? This is, of course, a very common way of how we can analyze the different methodologies of parents. And I'm sure all of you have seen one of each of the four parents. So I'd like to ask, on the sister side, who do you think, what parent do you think is the worst, and what parent do you think is the best? Sorry? Which one's the worst? Uninvolved. Okay. And the best? Authoritative. What about the brothers? What do you think would be the worst? Same, uninvolved. No one thinks authoritarian. You think authoritarian? Yeah, well, that's what authoritarian is, isn't it? It's becoming a Saddam Hussein. It's becoming a Pharaoh, right? I don't know. I would say uninvolved is bad. It is bad, but authoritarian, it really breaks the child. It really breaks the child. That kid doesn't have anything anymore. He can't function. He or she can't function anymore because he's degraded and humiliated that person so much that the person doesn't even have any self-value because he's always being slapped down. An uninvolved parent says, oh, it's up to you. You want to do what you want to do. You want to go to school. You don't want to go to school. You want to do this. You don't want to do that. You want to vape. You don't want to vape. It's up to you, right? This kid turns out to be very confused, but at least has a sense of self-value. Whereas an authoritarian parent, unfortunately, and we see a lot of this, dictatorial parents. There's a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi describing how some people are when they're in the masjid. MashaAllah, the first person to help with spreading out the sufra. What do you call sufra? Dastarkhan? Spreading out the dastarkhan. He's the one that polishes all the cups, always helping. Would you like something else? Shall I bring you some more chicken? What was it? What did we have tonight? But biryani or chicken? Right? Not that I. No comment. I'm being recorded. At home, doesn't pick up one tissue. In public, smiling, happy. At home, grumpy, angry. At home, he really is a Fir'aun. And we do have those kind of people, unfortunately, where they become so authoritarian in their homes. The child, the son, the daughter wants only one simple opportunity for them to be able to flee and run away. And that's why I say, and a lot of times, we really don't know what's going on in so many houses around us behind closed doors, right? And unfortunately, when it does come to this issue, we can see in our communities, in our Asian, Middle Eastern communities, we've, in cases, developed a double standard, two personality kind of life. You're somehow one personality at home and a different personality at the mosque, at the work, at school. At school, you're a gangster boy. You're an Eshay. Do you have Eshays here in Melbourne, or? Yeah, you do, or is it just in Sydney? We have any Eshays here? Are you Eshay? You are? What kind of shoes do you wear? TNs? Ah, see, you gotta be an Eshay if you wear TNs. At school, they're gangster, troublemaker, right? At home, angel. Angel. This is something that we need to be aware of. We need to make sure that we evaluate ourselves and our children in public and also in private as well. This is just a repetition of the 4 types of parenting, but this has examples, right? Calvin, can you read the examples? What was your name? What? Zayan? Oh, I thought it was Calvin. All right.
Sure, borrow the car whenever you want. You can borrow the car after you've picked up your sister from soccer practice. I don't care what you do. Don't bother me.
All right. Which one do you think is the best parent? 1, 2, or 3? Be honest.
3.
3. Who said 3? You said 3 as well? Good. You right or wrong? Who's going to say something else? What were you going to say? What were you going to say?
2.
Why?
Don't know.
Oh, because he's a good
Sure.
father, huh?
Huh?
Yeah, take the car whenever you want to. Okay. This is why when it comes to parenting, and this, addresses, what was your name? You forgot? What? Muhammad Ayan. So Muhammad said number 2, which is pretty much you can take the car whenever you want to. So a question that we really need to ask ourselves is that, is a good parent a parent that tells you or allows you to do absolutely everything? Is that a good parent? No, that's the worst parent. Is a good parent a parent that says, that doesn't allow you to do anything? No, that's also a very bad parent. A parent is one who lets you do things based on what is going to benefit you and doesn't let you do things based on what